Hello, Void Dwellers. Honestly, I don't know this channel, Professor Dave Explains, even though it has over 3 million subscribers. I've never heard of it until just now, just 20 minutes before I started writing this very script. But I do know Sabine Hossenfelder, the now successful science communicator. I've known her work for a few years now, from back when her channel had just a few thousand subscribers. And now she has over 1 million, and I couldn't be happier for her. I don't always agree with everything she says, but I don't need to in order to respect someone. I find Sabine to be an excellent communicator, relatable, which is not an easy thing for a German to achieve, and I also seem to share the same conservative and materialistic philosophy with her. Let's put it this way, we're both not very impressed with theoretical physics or math unless you can translate it into something practical in real life. Of course, being a physicist, her opinion counts infinitely more than mine on that subject. But I also share with her a certain disdain to academia, specifically the gulf between the idealized version we both had in our minds as young people and what we actually came into contact with. Although with me it's from a very different perspective, since when I decided to get a higher education, I decided to study humanities, specifically Western philosophy and religious studies, which is not a very good decision from a livelihood point of view, by the way. But then again, according to Sabine, so is studying physics. And already in my first iteration in academia, I noticed the level of study was not exactly what I was expecting. And if you're thinking, well, that's because you chose easy subjects, that's why. You obviously never had to write a paper analyzing Kant's work or commenting on Wittgenstein. No. I was more referring to the quality of the professors and the staff in general. And it's something that I heard from friends as well, people who studied in other universities and studied more solid professions like physics or chemistry. For example, a friend of mine who studied physics was taught by a professor who insisted that a proper interpretation of quantum physics means that all sorts of supernatural nonsense like telekinesis is real. And she was really upset by that. As for me, I remember a professor for rationalist and empiricist philosophy breaking the flow of speech to go into this bizarre lecture of personal opinions, all of them deeply stupid. He said that George W. Bush is the modern-day Napoleon, and he predicted that in the next few years, Linux would overtake Windows because that was just human nature. This was 20 years ago, yeah. And I remember thinking in real time, wow, you really have no idea what you're talking about, or are we even to analyze the events you are referring to? And to me, that was kind of a blow, being taught such brilliant men like Descartes, Berkeley, Leibniz, and Hume by someone who is obviously not even a shadow of those men. And I experienced something very similar recently. I thought I might want to study psychology. And I don't have the time or the necessary credentials here to actually go to university here in the UK. 40s. So I decided to go to the Open University and as a start, a kind of a trial, taking a course in child psychology. And immediately I noticed that I'm being taught what to think rather than how to think. Political views were very much infused into the material, and we had to write papers in which we explain an interpretation, not actual data, which is derived from political interest, and explain why it's right even if you think it's complete nonsense. And if you didn't do that, you didn't pass. And I actually got a bit of a rebuke for giving an opinion. Mind you, I wasn't giving an opinion on the data or even the interpretation of the data, but the political starting point of it. Now, was it the entire course? Of course not. A lot of it was fascinating information rooted in proper research, observation, and experimentation. But the political stuff was always there. So I too have some problems with how, in my mind, academia has fallen from grace. Now, Sabine's criticism is usually different. She is more focused on how academia is trying to earn money, to bring in grants, and therefore the quality of research is falling, and what is possible there is limited. And so, when the almighty algorithm suggested a video that criticizes Sabine, I thought, well, that should be interesting. Boy, was I wrong. Let's have a look at some moments.
The text on the thumbnail reads, "I failed, why academia sucks." From the title, we can surmise that she is going to be talking about her own personal experience. But think about how this thumbnail would resonate with your average science-denying ignoramus who looks at scientific credentials as cause for distrust, warning everyone about evil universities and their Rockefeller narratives full of lies. Do you see how instantly compatible they are?
I'm sorry, but some idiots might think this validates them is not a proper argument. And I can spare everyone the 30 minutes of this video and tell you right now that is his main point throughout it. It's basically, idiots might think you're agreeing with them, so you shouldn't say that. And no, that's not something that smart people should concern themselves with. It's not Sabina's job to always predict how morons are going to misrepresent her words. If we had to always think about that, we wouldn't be able to put two sentences together.
Let's have a listen.
Because I finished my exams with excellent grades. I don't mean to brag, but I think you need this context. But I wasn't offered a job because I'm a woman. I'm not guessing that that's what happened. I know because they told me. I told him that I was under no obligation to work for him and didn't care what the rest of the students were thinking. He got angry, I laughed at him, he started shouting that I was fired and physically shoved me out of his office. This institute wasn't about knowledge discovery, it was about money making. And the more I saw of academia, the more I realized it wasn't just this particular institute and this particular professor. It was generally the case. This is why research institutions exert loads of pressure on researchers to bring in grant money. And partly they do this by keeping the researchers on temporary contracts so that they need grants to get paid themselves. The result is a paper production machine in which students and postdocs are burned through to bring in money for the institution. It needs to be something that fits into the existing machinery. And since most grants are 3 years or 5 years at most, it also needs to be something that can be wrapped up quickly.
So it's absolutely fine for Sabine to tell her story, point out sexism she experienced, complain about someone who had authority over her, and even lament the degree to which capitalism influences scientific research. But it is a very exaggerated and one-sided description of academia.
So she is entitled to her story and her opinion, which, by the way, very gracious of you. But the problem is that you don't agree with her. Oh wow. What a crime. Some rando on the internet doesn't agree. Shit. She should just shut her channel down. By the way, I'm sure you're gonna give us evidence to contradict her?
Yes, researchers need grant money, but this is acquired by pursuing research that is innovative, probes unanswered questions, and potentially has some kind of industrial application. Good research tends to get funded.
Nope. He just repeats his opinion, which makes me say, citation needed. You can find countless examples of ridiculous or useless or simply very badly done research. And if you want those examples, how about watching some of Sabine's videos? Now, I'm not saying there isn't also important breakthrough, life-changing work done in academia. Of course there is. But the criticism here is that this has now become, or it's on the way to become, the rarity. And you are not giving any evidence to the contrary. And I really hoped you will, because believe me, nothing would make me happier than to discover that the image I have in my mind of academia is absolutely wrong. And in fact, all academic institutions are filled with non-profit aiming critical thinkers who want nothing but to discover the true nature of things. Can you please prove to me that that is the case?
The description Sabine offers allows those with anti-science leanings to imagine a soul-crushing factory devoid of imagination that exclusively manufactures technology for resource extraction and military campaigns. It's just not real.
Again, it's not her responsibility to censor her thoughts and feelings so some moron on the internet won't misrepresent what she's saying. The fact that that isn't obvious to you is a good example of a very known fact. Just because someone has taken the side of critical thinking doesn't necessarily make them critical thinkers. Her criticism of academia is very justified and shared by many people. In fact, it has become so bad that I am now suspicious of anyone who does not share this criticism. From the sexism she experienced, which I heard also from other women in academia globally. In fact, I was kind of surprised to hear that it's still happening in Germany, which I guess I have an idealized image of in my mind, to the politics of it, to the falling standards of the actual material taught, to the wasteful and sometimes scammy way research is done. Not always, not by everyone of course, but in an alarmingly rising number of cases. If you really care about science and science education, you don't need to go after the people who criticize academia because of its fall from grace, especially not when you yourself admit that the person you are criticizing is a respectable scientist and educator, and not some moron conspiracy theorist. You should heed their criticism and maybe suggest a few solutions. Or here's a novel idea. How about instead of blaming her for morons misrepresenting her points, how about you go after the morons? Isn't that what your channel is supposed to be about? I'm honestly asking. I've never heard of you until the almighty algorithm suggested this video to me. Just to get me pissed off, I guess. As if I don't have enough things to be pissed off about. God, I hate social media.
My only personal experience with research is in synthetic organic chemistry, but every single other graduate student I knew was just doing chemistry, coming up with new reactions, trying to synthesize specific molecules. There was nobody there from the Pentagon asking about how their research strengthens national security.
Are you shitting me? You are now reacting to imaginary conspiracy theories that some random idiots on the internet might come up with because of Sabine's videos. Okay, you know what? This crap is like 35 minutes long, and this is only the first 7 minutes, and already these arguments are simply not serious. To the point that I am convinced this is just a YouTuber's attempt to draw attention to himself by speaking about another successful YouTuber. And that's not a bad idea, so here I am, learning from the big boys. I am actually joking. If this is the first time you see a video of mine, I strongly suggest you don't subscribe, because this is not what I usually do. Maybe by this video you already realize I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Talking to the void is kind of the best explanation. But in any case, my point, and the reason I found this video so annoying, is that we already live in a society where stupid is taking over every single aspect of our lives. Where the smart are told to dial it down, take it down a notch, don't show off. I believe that is one of the worst things that has happened to Western society, the very cause of many of our modern and our ancient ailments. And now on top of that, smart people should not alert us or criticize certain things because the morons might use the word to promote their stupidity? No, I'm sorry. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Smart people should not take morons into account. Ever or in anything. Morons should not dictate how we talk, what we talk about, where we're doing our talking, or really anything about our lives. And anyone who tries to push this, the morons are listening, let's watch what we're saying attitude, is handing morons more power and influence and damages society. I don't know your channel, Professor Dave. From what I gather, you spend your time debunking morons, and I salute you for that. But you're dead wrong about this one. And your attitude, I believe, is actually dangerous to the future of academia, science education, and Western society.